A few days ago, I was reading the Discord and I saw one of those questions that probably get asked in every strategy game ever. A player posted a screenshot of his summons and asked something really simple. Should I use those now or save them? And honestly, when I first start playing the game like Heroes of History Epic Empire, I probably wouldn't even think about that question. I want just a summon. You get resources, you use resources, seems logical. But then I saw the replies. Everybody immediately told him the same thing. Wait. Summons of the Stars is actually starting. It's actually going to start tomorrow from the event. Here is the event, just to be precise. Maybe tomorrow, maybe after one day. But yeah, save everything for this event. That was the response the majority of the people was giving. And that's when I start thinking about something. Because this isn't really a summoning question, it's actually a progression question. And I think a lot of players don't realize that. Because the mistake isn't pulling, the mistake is pulling at the wrong time. And those are two different things. What surprised me is how often players still fall into this trap. And I make countless videos about summonings, the best summonings. Obviously, yeah, like 1% of the people just watch YouTube, but yeah, it's people are still falling in this trap. And when this event is going to arrive, when you're going to do your summons, you're just not going to get the value. Not because they're probably bad players, that the people who is falling in this trap, actually the opposite. Most of them, most of the time, they're excited. They finally get enough screws or antimatters, enough tickets, enough resources. They've been waiting all week. Then the moment they get them, boom, everything gets spent. Instant dopamine, instant satisfaction. And honestly, I've been done exactly the same thing at the beginning. You finally get enough resources and you want to see what happens. You want a hero, you want a fragment, you want an upgrade. You don't want to wait another day. But here's the weird part. The game knows that. The game is literally built around that feeling. Which make me ask another question. If everybody knows event rewards are better, why do so many players still summon early? And I'm going to say from my personal perspective, what I did back in the days. Obviously, I suggest always when you start playing Heroes of History Epic Empire, always go and do some summons. Get some heroes so you can start doing some progression. Here we're talking about people who is a little more longer time in the game. And I think the answer is actually pretty simple. Players focus on what they're getting. They don't focus on what they're giving up. Those are not the same things. When you summon today, you see a hero. You see a fragment, you see a reward. What you don't see is the event progression you just deleted. The moment you make those summons, you delete the future progression. What you don't see is the milestones rewards that could have been free tomorrow. What you don't see is the currency that would be generated from the same summons. And especially the eternalized summons, you're going to need those currencies. I mean, let me open these things. Right now, yeah, we're talking about right now these tokens, but it can be something completely different, or at least getting in ranking. And because those rewards are visible right now, I mean, that's that future event that you want to save up. You cannot see the rewards there. You see the rewards on what is visible right now. And those rewards in the future just don't feel real, but they are real. In fact, sometimes they're worth more than the summon itself. And that realization completely changes how I look at resource management. Because suddenly the question isn't, do I want this hero? The question becomes, what I'm sacrificing to get this hero today instead of tomorrow. And there was an event before, I don't know how much time, before a couple of days, I think, 2 times chance up event. Boy, this event, I guess some people get drained, and I can clearly see that because in the last chat, I see who is getting what when they're doing some summons, and I can see definitely at this event who did some summons. And people are doing that, not knowing that there's going to be internalizing hero. And that's and yeah, what I'm sacrificing to get this hero today instead of tomorrow, that's a much more dangerous question. Then I noticed something else. The strongest account I see rarely look impatience. And I don't mean whales, I mean smart players. The players who always sees to have the resources. And I can say I'm proud of that I'm always have our resources when the event arrive. Right now I have like 157, I have some legendary one, I have some Egypt one, I have some arcane one. This is saving. It's just saving. The players who somehow finish event. And the previous event on the Shoka I finished on the first place. And I get this extra 15 more hits. The players who always seems prepared. Basically, I was one of the players who always seems to be prepared. A lot of time aren't luckier. Because here is the thing, especially with the summonings, is what you're going to summon is giving different points. So you cannot count on luck there. So yeah, how the people are getting, they're just waiting longer. Which sounds boring, right? But think about it. Most players optimize acquisition. Very few optimize it timing. Very few optimize timing. And timing might actually be the biggest advantage because two players can earn exactly the same resources. One uses them immediately, the other aligns them with the event. 6 months later, those accounts don't look same anymore. And that's where I think people are making a mistake. Because the difference isn't what they earn, it's how efficient they convert it. Then things got even more interesting because I start realizing this mistake isn't really about summoning at all. At all. I've been seeing players do this without almost. I have been seeing players do this with almost everything. It's not only about the summons. It can be your food. It can be your gold. It can be your session materials. It can be your, for example, Tesla Storm, Superior Green Crystal, and all these resources. Basically, anything that can be spent. The moment it appeared, they spend it, and I get it. I get it. Holding resources feels like doing nothing. Spending resources feels like you're doing some kind of progression. But those aren't always the same thing. Sometimes the account that looks slower today is actually growing faster. And that's one of the hardest lessons in strategy games because patience often look inefficient right before it become efficient. I learned that one the hard way more than once. And then another question appears. How much waiting is actually correct? Because obviously we can save everything forever. That's another trap. Some players become resource dragons. They save for months, never spend, never improve, never progress. And eventually they fell behind too. So now we're dealing with completely different problem. Not spending too early, not spending too late. Finding the window where resources create maximum value. And that's where strategy start become interesting because There isn't universal answer. Sometimes spending immediately is correct. Sometimes waiting 1 day is correct. Sometimes waiting a month is correct. The hard part is recognizing the difference. What really catch my attention from the Discord conversation wasn't the player asking the question, it was how quickly everybody answered. Nobody was debating, nobody was arguing, everybody immediately said wait. And when you see experienced players agree that quickly, when I see experienced players agree that quickly, I pay attention, because usually that means they already have done this mistake. They already spent early. They already missed a reward. They already learned the lesson. And now they're trying to stop somebody else for repeating it. I always find that interesting, because some of the best advice in the strategy games isn't theory, it's regrets. Then I start wondering how many hidden mistakes like this still exist in Heroes of History Epic Empire. Mistakes that don't feel like mistakes that actually feels good. Those are usually the dangerous one, because nobody incidentally wastes resources and feels terrible. The dangerous waste is the waste that feels rewarding, the summon that feels exciting, the upgrade that feels satisfying, the purchase that feels smart. And suddenly the same decision look very different. I've been think I think I've been all experienced that at least once. I think we all experience that at least once. I definitely have. So there is one thing I took away. So if there's a one thing I took away from that Discord discussion, it's this. Most players think progression is about getting more resources. I'm starting to think progression is often about wasting fewer resources. Those sound similar, but they are completely different philosophies. One focuses on income, the other focuses on efficiency. And strategy games have taught me that efficiency compound is really scary ways over time. Small mistakes today become big gap later. Small advantages today become huge advantage later. And sometimes all of that starts with a very simple question. Should I summon now? Or should I wait for tomorrow? Anyway, I'm curious what you guys think. Have you ever spent summonings right before the event, right before an event, immediately regret that? Or are you one of those players with superhuman patience who always wait for maximum value? Let me know in the comments, because honestly, I think most of us have learned this lesson at least once the hard way. And I definitely have done it. So yeah, guys, just want to give my 2 cents over a mistake that I see still happen in Heroes of History Epic Empire. Don't forget to hit one like on the video if you enjoyed, subscribe for more Heroes of History Epic Empire content, and if you want to directly support my channel, you can become a member and get early access to my other videos. I wish you a great day and see you in the next video.